How are you? We're a little late, but that's okay. We're here. I'm Matt with sowcincy. Welcome to the Bible Study live stream for Wednesday, August 9th. I need to be posting all of the podcasts. So if you've been looking for this on podcast form, I don't know why it's not working. I can't. I'll upload, but then it just gives me this continuous wheel, and it just sits in drafts, and I can't publish it. So I figured out if I use Chrome, I can publish it. So I'm just gonna upload just a whole bunch of episodes, like the past 4 episodes, because they weren't uploading before. So that's it. That's all I got for housekeeping. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into Acts chapter 18. I think I titled this Acts chapter 17. Whoops. But we are Acts chapter 18 today. And so this is from the New Living Translation. So we're going to read through it, and we're going to pull out some stuff that we noticed. So then it says, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he became acquainted with a Jew named Aquila, born in Pontus, who had recently arrived from Italy with his wife Priscilla. They had left Italy when Claudius Caesar deported all Jews from Rome. Paul lived and worked with them, for they were tent makers, just as he was. Each Sabbath found Paul at the synagogue, trying to convince the Jews and Greeks alike. And after Silas and Timothy came down from Macedonia, Paul spent all his time preaching the word. He testified to the Jews that Jesus was the Messiah, but when they opposed and insulted him, Paul shook the dust from his clothes and said, "Your blood is upon your own heads. I am innocent. From now on, I will go preach to the Gentiles." Then he left and went to the home of Titus Justus, a Gentile who worshiped God and lived next door to the synagogue. Crispus, the leader of the synagogue, and everyone in his household believed in the Lord. Many others in Corinth also heard Paul, became believers, and were baptized. One night the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision and told him, "Don't be afraid. Speak out. Don't be silent, for I am with you, and no one will attack and harm you, for many people in the city belong to me." So Paul stayed there for the next year and a half, teaching the word of God. But when Gallio became governor of Achaia, some Jews rose up together against Paul and brought him before the governor for judgment. They accused Paul of persuading people to worship God in ways that are contrary to our law. But just as Paul started to make his defense, Gallio turned to Paul's accusers and said, "Listen, you Jews, if this were a case involving some wrongdoing or a serious crime, I would have a reason to accept your case. But since it is merely a question of words and names and your Jewish law, take care of it yourselves. I refuse to judge such matters," and he threw them out of the courtroom. The crowd then grabbed Sosthenes, the leader of the synagogue, and beat him. They were wild back then, man. And beat him right there in the courtroom. But Gallio paid no attention. Paul stayed in Corinth for some time after that, then said goodbye to the brothers and sisters and went to nearby, I'm just going to butcher this, Centria. There he shaved his head, according to Jewish custom, marking the end of a vow. Then he set sail for Syria, taking Priscilla and Aquila with him. They stopped first at the port of Ephesus, where Paul left the others behind. And while he was there, he went to the synagogue to reason with the Jews. They asked him to stay longer, but he declined. As he left, however, he said, "I'll come back later, God willing." Then he set sail from Ephesus. The next stop was at the port of Caesarea. I think I say that wrong every single time. From there, he went up and visited the church at Jerusalem and then went back to Antioch. After spending some time in Antioch, Paul went back through Galatia and Phrygia, visiting and strengthening all the believers. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, an eloquent speaker who knew the scriptures well, had arrived in Ephesus from Alexandria in Egypt. He had been taught the way of the Lord, and he taught others about Jesus with an enthusiastic spirit and with accuracy. However, He knew only about John's baptism. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him preaching boldly in the synagogue, they took him aside and explained the way of God even more accurately. Apollos had been thinking about going to Achaia, and the brothers and sisters in Ephesus encouraged him to go. They wrote to the believers in Achaia asking them to welcome him. When he arrived, he proved to be of great benefit to those who, by God's grace, had believed. He refuted the Jews with powerful arguments in public debate, using scriptures, and he explained to them that Jesus was the Messiah. There you go. That's Acts chapter 18. So it's cool. Like if you are if you're if you're already a person who believes in Jesus, you read the Bible, you read scriptures, you read things like this, right? You know Paul writes most of the New Testament letters to the churches at all these places. And it's to me, it's always cool to see how everything was set up. So like he sailed to Ephesus, they were there. Apollos was there. He went to he was going to Galatia. He was going to this place, and he was at Corinth, and he stayed there for a year. It's cool to see those, like that's like the little history and like it's just the setup to what you know is to come in the letters to those churches and those spots. And I think it's just really cool it's always just really cool to read. So, but let's talk about Acts 18. So in verse 6, it says, "But when they opposed and sought him, Paul shook the dust from his clothes and said, 'Your blood is upon your own heads. I'm innocent. From now on, I'll go preach to the Gentiles.'" I don't know, because I didn't study this too well. But I believe what he was going was like he didn't want to focus on like that. That's what he was, from what I've been reading and what it seems like. He's been focusing a lot on trying to reason with the Jews. So he's been going to the synagogues whenever he sets sail and goes to these different cities. And so he's like, I'm done with the Jewish people. I'm going to go to the Gentiles. So Paul's will use, spoiler alert, will use his Roman citizen status that he's used before to talk to the Gentiles about salvation and Christ and what it means for them. And so this shaking the dust, we then later see as he was going somewhere else. I can't remember where. But when it says that he shook his head, or not, he shook his head, he shaved his head. Oh, there it is. Paul, verse 18. Paul stayed in Corinth for some time after that, which that's where you get the Corinthians in 1st and 2nd Corinthians. Paul stayed in Corinth for some time after that, said goodbye to the brothers, went to nearby, wherever that place is. There he shaved his head according to Jewish custom, marking the end of a vow. I don't know what the vow is. I think, I could be wrong. I could absolutely totally be wrong though. I think it was him saying, like, I was gonna hang out and mess with the Jews to help them out, but I'm done with them. I'm going to Gentiles. But that's just my assumption. That's if I'm studying this. If I wanted to go into a deep dive of Acts 18. My assumption coming into it, and assumption is just it's the bad phrase. You don't want to assume things into scriptures. But my first observation or my first question would be, that'd be better. Is the shaving of his head and the vow related to him being done preaching to the Jews and now going to the Gentiles? Was the shaving of the head now the start of him preaching to the Gentiles? That's my question. That's what when I say I'm assuming, that's what I really mean. Is if I was going to do a Bible study on this passage, I would ask the question, is the shaving the head and the vow, his start to preaching the Gentiles. Because what I think, and from what I saw, was that he went to a synagogue, but he didn't stay at the synagogue. He's like, nah. Like verse 20, they asked him to stay longer, but he declined. I'll come back later. So that's what so that's where I would see if my Bible study would lead me. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. That's okay. I don't think it's a big deal. But if I wanted to understand Acts 18 more and more, I would leave it at that. If it was like, oh no, the vow was something else, I'd be like, okay, cool. No big deal. Okay. The other thing that is interesting here. Pull this back up. They accuse Paul of persuading, verse 13, of persuading people to worship God in ways that are contrary to our law. So this was the Jewish people. They were bringing charges, so to speak, against Paul. And they wanted the politics of it to play a role so that Paul could be stopped. And sometimes what I'm learning is when you're doing things to reach a city, like being intentional in reaching a city. Excuse me. What you're gonna find often is that, and this is an application. This is just what I've noticed. It's a similarity. It's coincidence, what do you want to call it? But when you're trying to reach a city, when you're trying to do things, there could be some people that get in your way and try to stop you from doing what you want to do. And so sometimes what you have to do, like if you're in ministry, sometimes you just got to push through. As simple as that. Like you're gonna have bumps in the road, you're gonna have hurdles, you're gonna have barriers, and they can become what's the word I'm looking for? They can become discouraging. So Kristen and I, we feel like we're really facing that, where there's some stuff that we want to do within Cincinnati to benefit our neighborhood of where we live. And we were working with one group, and there was just a disagreement in how to go about it. It wasn't like a big thing. It was the group wanted to so how we well, let me back up real quick. So context. So we got part of this group where we talk about trauma and resilience, and so we wanted to talk to neighbors and people within our neighborhood about, how to deal with trauma, how to build resilience, connecting them to the neighbors, because the whole group of us, all 5 of us or so, we were all residents of the neighborhood. So we're like, hey, we're with you. Like, we want to talk and we want to have activities, and things were going cool. Well, there's a slight shift in leadership, and so the new leadership was like, they looked at the grants and stuff, and they were like, hey, we're not going to do what we've been doing. We're going to do it this way now. And it didn't really fit our skill set. It didn't fit mine. It kind of fit mine. It didn't fit Kristen's skill set at all. And we were like, we're not going to re-sign for this group because we feel like our skill sets aren't doing it. And so, but we still wanted to use that skill set. So we just, it was an amicable split. And And so we wanted to do stuff like our way because we felt we had a better fit while the other group did their thing. And so we still want to work together with the group, things like that. But doing this work, we're getting a lot of pushback. So for doing this, because there's different grants involved, there's different money involved and things like that. And so long story short, when the Jews were talking about, when the Jews were bringing Paul's stuff to the court, to the governor, it says some Jews rose up together against Paul and brought him before the governor for judgment. Paul made his defense. Gallio turned to Paul's accuser and said, listen, if there's a case involving some wrongdoing or serious crime, I'd have a reason to accept your case. But since it's merely a question of words and names in your Jewish law, take care of it yourselves. I refuse to judge such matters. For me, I can relate to this. I'm not saying this is the application for me, but I can just relate to it. And my prayer for this whole situation is that God will take care of this. We can keep doing what we do. We can be left alone. They can continue to do what they do. If we work together, cool. If not, that's okay too. And we just want to see people get the help they need in however way. And like we're cool. But yeah, it's just that whole thing. Like I can imagine Paul being like, oh, here we go again. Like another group of people are trying to accuse me of this wrongdoing. And I'm like, I'm over it. Like that's kind of what I think he's feeling. Cause I don't know. I could be wrong though. Cause that's how I feel. I'm just like, I ain't got time to sit around and just like mess with this nonsense. Like I don't want time to mess with the politics of it. Like I just want to, we're just trying to go out and serve our community and love the people that live here. That's all. I ain't got time to talk about the politics. So, but that's it for Acts chapter 18. So thanks for tuning in. This is the Wednesday, August 9th podcast episode, live stream, whatever you want to call it. So be sure to follow us everywhere on the socials, all at sowcincy, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. If you're here on YouTube, this is your first time, welcome. I hope you liked what you heard. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you'll always get a notification. And reminder that starting next week, the Monday, Wednesday, Friday live stream is going to change from now, 7 a.m. to 9:40. We're going to push it to the night because it's just hard to do everything. And I got stuff to do in the mornings. And so I want to dedicate some time to that. So we're going to push this back to evenings. But it'll still be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9:40 p.m. We'll see you. Have a good one. Peace.